Okay, so here I am just starting my fairy wings. I have a little bit of copper wire. I really like this wire because it is super malleable and easy to use. I'm gonna shape my wings to be sort of like butterfly shaped, but because this is a fairy and you're just using your imagination, you can shape your wings any way you like. But here I am sort of shaping them up, and I'm going to add a second part or a bottom part of the wing, and I'm going to shape those as well. Now I'm just adding a little bit of masking tape to put the two wings together, and just adjusting them here to kind of get a really good look at what they're going to look like. So now to make the main part of the wing, I'm going to use some tissue paper, and I've just used a little bit of water and glue, like craft glue or school glue, and I'm just putting it around the wire, and I'm going to let that dry before I start to shape it and cut away all the extra little pieces. Okay, so to make the head, I am basically squishing up a little piece of tin foil, and to make it smooth, I am pushing it down on the table. I find that really helps because sometimes when you have a little ball of tin foil, it can be kind of sharp. I don't really like the sharp edges, so I squish it down on the table, and I'm just pulling apart my polymer clay, and I'm warming it up with my hands so that it's more malleable, and I'm just wrapping it around my little tinfoil ball. Now I'm just smoothing out all the rough edges. This is really up to you. If you want a bumpy, funny looking fairy head, you can leave some of the roughness. I'm making kind of like a smoother, more alien shaped fairy head, so that's why I'm sort of smoothing everything out. I've just added a nose. I'm using a little polymer clay tool to blend in the edges of the nose, and then I just use my hand and sort of just keep molding it, shaping it the way that you want it to look. Now I'm making indents where I'm going to be painting on the eyes, and I find that just sort of gives it a little extra character, so I recommend it. I'm making the ears here too, and to make the ears I just sort of flatten out a little piece and sort of fold it over, because we're going to be making little fairy or elf ears. And there's so many ways to make elf ears. I think pointed elf ears are pretty much the bee's knees and the best ones, but I'm really interested and curious about making rounded elf ears lately, so I've been making more rounded ones, and I still think they're super cute. Now I'm just adding little holes in the top to be able to put in my antenna, and a hole in the bottom so I can attach the head to the body eventually. I'll be putting the polymer clay in the oven at 275 for about anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes. Now I'm making the little shoes, and I'm doing basically what I just did, and I'm just shaping them and making sure there's no extra little bumps. And I'm using the table to create edges and things that I need. Like the tops of the shoes are a little more flat now because I use the table to shape them. And here are some of the things that you'll need to make the antenna. Pretty much the exact same thing that I use to make the wings. So a little bit of tissue paper, some glue, and some wire, some copper wire. I'm going to put those to the side and let them dry. Now I'm just going to create the skeleton of my fairy. I'm using some armature wire. I'm just measuring out the size right now, comparing it to the wings that I made. So you can kind of like base your size on the wings if you make the wings first. And so yeah, I'm just sort of taking some wire. I'm going to use some masking tape to put it all together. But one thing that I want to make really clear is make sure that they're even at the bottom, because if you want your fairy to stand, you're going to want to make sure that the bottom two pieces that end up being the legs will be even. And I'm making essentially like hips, that's why I was bending it there. And then at the top I'm just sort of squishing it down a bit with some pliers, measuring out the arms. And just using some masking tape to put the arms together. And here I'm going to start bending the arms down a bit, and I'm going to create some shoulders. So remember to create the hips and the shoulders. This will help you start to really see it come together. And now I'm just going to cut away all of the extra tissue paper that I was using for my fairy wings now that they're dry. Okay, it's time to paint the fairy wings. You can paint your fairy wings any color you like, but I just got this really cool gold metallic paint, so I thought I would test it out and see how it looks. You can also just not paint them and use a tissue paper that you really like and keep it the color of the tissue paper. Now I'm just cutting out a nice little leaf shape to create the antenna. So sometimes when you look at a moth's antenna, they kind of have like a little leafy shape to them. And so I thought I would go with like a moth antenna to make it kind of quirky and fun. And here I decided to paint it black because a lot of moth antennae are black, but again, you could keep it any color and do whatever you like. If you want to paint it, go ahead, or just use the tissue paper color. Now it's time to paint the polymer clay head. I'm just going to do one layer of paint to start, and I always use acrylic paint. And I will do one layer and then I'll let that dry. So I'm doing that with the little shoes as well. Now I'm just adding a little bit of decoration to the wings and sort of playing around. Of course, this is like a very creative, open thing, so do whatever you like. If you want to paint the wings, go ahead. For the eyes, I'm just making some white little spots where I'm going to put pupils, and eventually I go over those areas again with some black paint and some more green paint, and I try to blend it all in. A little bit of hot glue to keep the shoes on. That's all you need. Now I'm just wrapping the body in masking tape to give it a little more bulk before I start adding the fabric. it's time to add some yarn. So I put a little bit of hot glue on her neck, and then I'm wrapping the yarn around her body. Eventually you will see her whole body will be wrapped in yarn, and this just gives her a really good base to start to put clothes on. Add some stuffing if you have any. In this case, I thought she needed a little bit of padding in the tummy abdomen area, and I thought it ended up working really well. So you can add some stuffing, or if you want your doll to be skinny, you don't have to. Now she's really coming together. All that we have to do next is add some clothing and some hair. This is my favorite way to do hair these days. I take a piece of yarn and I just pull it apart. I was making hair with wool, and I just found that actually this is a little bit easier, and I really love the wavy curls that happen when you pull yarn apart. So I'm just using hot glue, but you could also use super glue to do this. I find both ways are pretty great, and they work. If you have any spots that are showing, like any glue spots, then you can just reheat up that glue by using the tip of your hot glue gun and then putting more hair on top of that spot. That's how I get rid of all the extra glue spots. Now I have her hair tucked up in a way because I'm putting on the clothing. And the clothing can be sometimes the trickiest part because there's so many different ways to do clothing, but I'm doing a very sort of quick and easy way using hot glue. There's no sewing involved, and I'm just basically taking pieces of fabric and gluing them on to fill in the spaces and to make what looks like clothing. Here I'm using some fabric that I recently made block prints on. I made a moth block print, so I thought it was really fitting if I could make her dress with the same fabric. And all I'm doing is just wrapping it around and giving it little pleats as I go to give the dress a little more volume. Now this is one of the most fun parts about putting these dolls together, is wrapping them up in yarn or embroidery thread, making belts, making different parts of the dress and the clothing with different kinds of threads. I really love that part because I find it's when my fairy doll really starts to come together. And there you have it. She looks so cool. I absolutely love her. I love the way the dress turned out, and I love her face and everything about her and her golden wings. She's so cool and pretty. I'm super excited to see what you guys make, and comment below letting me know if you try this tutorial. And if you make something, send me a link to your Instagram so I can see it. I would love to see what you create.